Here, Frank Russo now leading the pruning in his life. He was in Pittsburgh, William Mary, NYU. Then he was a Spanish teacher. And the past 10 years, he was managing the Golden Years yard sale. You still doing that?
No. I do it on a very, very, very.
Yeah.
I said before we
So please welcome Frank and helper please be there. Also involved in landscape love, Gary Strap.
I want to thank you all for coming. Pruning is a thing that I started when I was young. In fact, I'm going to show you, my father used to send me out to cut the boxwoods in our front yard. This, and I used to do this. We had a lot of boxwoods, and I used to get stung with a nest side. But anyway, this was fun and changed things since then. But anyway, I don't have a lot of time. We have an hour, and I want to make sure we get through everything program. So I'm going to try to start right now. If you can hold questions till the end, because you may see that they get answered as we go through the program. Okay. The other thing I want to show you is this here. I'm going to let you pass this around. This is a paper bush, and at the end of the program, I'm going to show you the last slide actually has this with little whiskers. You can pass it around. Smell the flowers. Okay, this is a bush that is deer resistant and is also about yay high. It's in a position right now to get some sun, a little bit of shade, but it's an excellent plant. They're hard to get. And anyway, I'm starting. I've got about 10 here, and I would give these anyone that's interested in it after you see the last slide. You just need a little bit of this called root tone. You scrape the bottom, put this on, put it in the ground, and wait for a couple of months till it roots. And you'll have a bush, which you'll see on the last slide.
What's it called?
It's called a paper bush. It's also
Edgeworthia.
Edgeworthia.
And it's blooming now.
It blooms. It has leaves. It looks. I had plumerias on both sides of my driveway. They were this tall. They have to go inside every year in the garage. It got to be too much, so I bought this. It has the same leaf as the plumeria. It's green all year. It loses its leaves. You'll see it, and it gets this little white, looks like Hershey Kisses, which is what you see there. And the fragrance is incredible. So you'll get the smell that when it gets passed around. And if you like it, I've got about a dozen here, and you can take one with you. Okay. All right. Our purpose. I'm a master gardener. I started in 2014, and it's an excellent program. It's available here in Williamsburg to any of you that are interested. And it's about a 2-month program. You go twice a week. Leaves twice a week. Yeah. And it's just a great program. I learned a lot. I knew a lot growing up on a farm. However, when I came to Williamsburg, I planted crepe myrtles and crepe murdered them. It's a long story. But anyway, we don't have time for that. Anyway, it's a great program. Master gardeners told me how to do things in the proper way. I took the class, and I actually started a little landscape business, which ends right now. But anyway, our purpose is to educate and communicate sound environmental and horticultural practices to the community using research-based information from our land-grant colleges, Virginia Tech and Virginia State University. And we get information from them before we come to your homes. We are in the midst of the pruning program right now. We are visiting about 53 homes. We've actually cut it off. If you go on the Master Gardener website, you can see it's cut off. But I've talked to the other people, and I talked to Gary, who leads 2 of the teams, and we've agreed to take on a few more if any of you want to have a visit at your home. Okay, but we're actually, technically, if you go on the website, you'll see it's closed out.
They'll be here at the presentation.
How much pruning do you want to do? Okay, how many like to prune in here? Okay, good. And a lot of people don't like to do a lot of pruning, and the secret to not doing a lot of pruning is buying plants that don't need a lot of pruning, okay? There's a formal or natural style, then the right plant in the right place makes a huge, huge difference, and we'll go into more detail in the future. Both formal and natural landscape, and on this picture here, you can see. Pass that. Did everyone see this?
No.
Okay, pass it. Just pass it around. And again, I have more here. Anyway, this is natural here, okay? Formal, I'm sorry, this is formal, and this is your natural here. This formal, personally, I don't know whose home this is, might be here in Williamsburg, beautiful home, but this should not be flat like that on the top, okay? And hopefully we'll go into more detail on that. Next slide, please. Okay, this is a formal Japanese garden, okay? This takes a lot of work. If you have something like that, it's absolutely beautiful. However, you're going to be working a lot of time keeping it that way. One of the biggest things on these, and these might be boxwoods, I'm not sure. I can't tell if I'm not there, but usually there's a thing called windows, and you want to open these up so that the inside doesn't turn brown. And how many have boxwoods here? If you look inside your boxwoods, sometimes people want to prune them down, okay? And once you prune them down, all the twigs. To prevent that from happening, you make windows, you cut a piece out, put it back together, and the sun can get in, and you will have greenery inside, so that when you want to cut it shorter, you can, and you will have a nice looking plant. I've seen people that have asked me to cut them down. They said they want it low. This low, a bunch of twigs. Okay, you don't want that. But if you make these windows and gradually bring it down, you can get it down. But more importantly than pruning it down, you want buying something that will be the right height when it's mature. Okay. Okay, natural landscape, use of plants that need minimal pruning equals a sustainable landscape. This is someone who has natural plants, doesn't need a lot of pruning, and it's easier to take care of, okay? I have people that, I have my own business, and I had customers that, owners that wanted not to do a lot of work, and I would try to buy plants for them that did not require a lot of work. Okay, plant selection for a new home determines how it will look in the future. Know the mature size of plants before buying them. For example, boxwoods. Okay, boxwoods, again, this is a perfect example. They can be this high, okay, which is 3 to 5 feet, or they could be 6 to 20 feet tall. You need to know what the height will be before you plant the boxwood. Boxwoods are something in this area that's had some problems in the recent years with boxwood blight. Okay, so there's another plant that looks like a boxwood. I forget what it's called. It's a boxwood look-alike, I call it. There's a holly, Gary, is that the name?
Japanese home,
Japanese holly.
has little leaves, really gets the for the compacta, which gets bigger. As well as our native. I like explanatory view palm as well. Also, there's all the resistance.
I like the viburnum. I have a viburnum. I don't know if it's one of these two types, but I planted it in front of my rain barrels. I have 2 rain barrels around my house. I collect water. I use it to water orchids and a lot of plants outside in my home. But the viburnum I planted to cover the rain barrel. Well, that viburnum is as tall as this. I don't need it that tall. Okay, and I wasn't thinking when I planted. I just wanted something to cover the rain barrel. So again, know your mature size before you buy. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, right place, right plant, right place. I had a customer in Kingsmill who had a lot of trees, and they were on top of each other. It looked horrible. And she said, "What can I do?" I said, "Well, damage is done. You planted these. I'm sure they look really pretty when you put them in the ground. but they grow. And you need to know how big they're going to grow before you do it. In her case, she had to cut some trees out and decide which ones she wanted to keep so that the rest would look okay. Right. But again, this is a perfect example. You don't want a tree too close to the house because it will touch the house. When it touches the house, and I know someone else that has a problem like this, squirrels climb into the house, they get into the attic, and they do damage. Have any of you had squirrel damage?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's something, you need to keep plants away from the house, especially if they're going to get big. You want to make sure you have enough room so that they will not touch the house. Why do we prune? Anyone can give me an answer? Health of the plant, good. Aesthetics, okay. Maintain the size, excellent. Next line. Proper pruning enhances the beauty and health of landscape, trees, and shrubs. Reasons for pruning: training the plant. You can train the plant to go this way, that way, up, keep it at a certain height, but training the plant, you have the power to do that. So when you can prune. So that's one item. Maintaining the health is extremely important. I highlighted it with yellow because you want to make sure the plant lives. Okay, I had a cherry tree in my front yard. It was beautiful. And I put that black matting on the ground. And when the master gardeners came, they ripped it all out, killing the tree. And the tree did die a couple of years later. It was a gorgeous tree. It was 30 years old. And it was like people would walk by and just, that was a cherry tree. And it was just, anyway, improve the quality, prevent injury. Sometimes you will see a branch that's coming low and people are walking, you have a path and they'll scratch you or catch you off guard. You need to keep them off the path. So preventing injury, you cut off limbs to do that. Controlling the size. You don't want it to get huge, but you've got it in the wrong place. You can cut it back, but cutting it back, you need to know how to do that. And you don't want to do more. This is a rule of thumb. No more than a third of a plant should be taken out in most cases. There are a few exceptions, but that's just a rule of thumb I use when I'm pruning. I don't do more than a third in 1 year. Okay. All right, the 4 Ds for the health of the plant. 4 Ds are dead, damaged, diseased, and dangerous. Okay, that's important. This is the reason we remove, we do pruning, all right? Removing, crossing, or rubbing branches. Crepe myrtles in particular, you'll see they cross, you have any, and they actually will meld together, okay? We don't want that to happen because it can create infection on the plant, and so you need to cut any branches that are crossing, okay? Improving light and air circulation, again, it's just like the boxwoods. You want to make windows. You cut pieces out, and then you put it back together. This is This is an example of a damaged branch, and in that particular case, you would cut it out because you don't want this to be exposed and diseased. Okay, removing the 4 Ds. There's 3 Ds, but I think it should be 4 Ds. Right. This is one here. Well, this one here is diseased. Okay. This is a damaged one. You want to cut that out. This is a dead piece here. You don't want dead. If you see anything dead, you can prune that at any time and just get it out of the way because it's not helping your tree or plant. And then this one here would be dangerous. It might be in the path of somebody when you're cutting the grass. I know a lot of people have problems cutting grass because the branches are too low. And this way you just cut away branches that are lower and in your way. Landscape. Controlling the natural shape and size, restoring symmetry and balance, direct growth in young plants. You can direct it in the direction you want it to be. These 2 now need to be pruned, and they have it shaped nicely. This is the way you want your plants to be. You don't want them to be, there'll be another slide on this, but you want them shaped like this so that they get sun and they get light. And that's important for the health of the plant. All right, value. Which one do you like better, this home or this home? This is the same house. You look closely, it's the same home. I didn't put all these slides together, so I don't know where this came from, but it's probably somewhere here in Williamsburg. All right, so this is what the house looked like before. This is what it looks like now. You can see this bush is now smaller. They've got this down as opposed to being up there, and it just looks nicer. You're trying to sell your house at some point in time, which probably may. But I've been in my house. I never thought it would be here that long, but it is. But anyway, you want to make sure your bushes are maintained and look good. In the same house, what a difference this makes, especially between. What do you need to know? And we'll ask questions at the end. We'll have a little period, hopefully we'll have enough time, I think we will, where you can ask questions. Learn about plant parts before you prune. All right, obviously you know what the roots are, you don't see them, they're under the ground. Sometimes you see them. Okay, the leader is on the top of the tree. You have a stub like this. You don't want a stub, you want to cut it a little closer to the main piece, but you don't want it right up against it. I think we have a slide to show you what I'm talking about there. Water sprouts. How many of you have water sprouts? They really just cut off. All right, you cut them off because they are sucking energy from your tree. My cherry tree that died had a lot of water sprouts. And eventually, I learned to get rid of them, and I did, but it was. Suckers are another thing. They come from the bottom up, and if you look close to the bottom of your tree, you'll see them sometimes. No, you don't need those. Those right here, these are suckers from my paper bush. And I took them out this morning, so they're fresh. I have them in water, but they're not helping the plant that I have. And you'll see the plant that I have that this came from on the last slide. Next question. All right, when you know the branch parts, you will know where to make a pruning cut. Okay, terminal bud, internode is between the two buds. Latent buds, you can't hardly see them. Lateral buds, there's two here, they're dormant. And then the annual rings are just telling you how old your tree is, basically. Next. Okay, parts of a branch and leaf. You've got your flower buds, your terminal growth buds, bud scale spar where a leaf had fallen off. And that's about it on this here, but we're trying to show you where to cuts. I think some of the slides in the future may show that. If not, we will have a little time. We can go outside. I can try to show you on some of the plants that are outside where to make the cuts. Okay, hold your tool so the cutting blade is close to the remaining plant part. Okay, that's important. This is a pruner that I use. It's called a Felco, and we're going to go through the tools. But this is the part, the blade part, and you want that to be closest to here. All right, so you want the blade, not this side, the blade part to be closest to the branch that you're cutting. Okay. All right, where to cut, and again, this is you're cutting after the bud, not on this side, but on that side. I see people make cuts like here. That's not good. You want it to be just so that this can take off. All right, part you want to cut off, but you don't want to cut it right even. You want to have a little bit. You want to stay outside of the branch collar. This is branch collar, and you want to be on this side and give it a little bit of space so that this can seal and grow. They seal. You don't need to paint them. I see people when I grew up as a kid. They had people with paint trees. You don't need to do this. Not good. Next slide. Okay, avoid cuts between nodes. This is another example of what I was saying earlier. They just cut pieces off. I've seen trees like that. I see a lot of landscapers in Williamsburg that do this and do worse than that. They do the crepe murdering. Luckily, yo puedo hablar español. I can speak Spanish. Yo parlo italiano. I can speak Italian. And a lot of these workers, especially Spanish, are Spanish. And some of them know what they're doing. Some of them don't. A lot of them don't. And I've seen some horrible things just driving around Williamsburg that makes my stomach turn. Right, but anyway, this is a no-no, you don't do that. Next. Okay, this is the correct way of cutting. Right, you want it at a 45-degree angle, like the one on your left. That's the way your cuts should be. Okay, this one too angular, too low, too high, above the, you don't want it way up there. But that's the correct way you're cutting your pieces. This one was not cut that way because I cut them off the bottom. These were, like I said, some. And I have about another 40 like that, which I will be setting up and starting new ones. And you will see probably at least a half a dozen at the plant sale, which we will have in May.
6th of May, Saturday at the Botanical Garden.
So I will have at least a half a dozen of these. Go in as a wholesale. I can buy wholesale, and it costs me $35 for the one that I bought, which is about that high. And this is air resistant. It's a beautiful plant. It loses its leaves, but it gets all these little things that you saw there, and it smells incredible. All right, 45-degree again above cut. Okay. There are two basic types of pruning cuts: heading cuts and thinning cuts. This is a heading cut, and basically you're taking the tops off, and then this is what your result is. Okay. Produces a cluster of shoots. Shearing, which is really random heading, is the same thing. It's a type of heading done with hedge clippers. Now again, you can use something like this, or you can do something like this, which is what I do on my boxwoods. And people kind of cringe when I say I use this on the boxwood. It's quick, it's easy, and you can control it. It's light, it's on battery. You don't have electric cords to play with. And it's just a way of doing it. The most important thing, though, when you're doing it with that, is that you make the windows. You gotta have the windows, or the inside is going to. Okay, this is. All right, I'm going to turn this over to Gary. He gets the second half, and then we're going to do a little demo on this.
Yeah, we may be bouncing back some terminology as well. Again, two types of cuts that you'll be doing. The heading cuts, which you're shearing or snipping off the terminal buds, and however much you personally choose to take off of the plant to control the size. When you cut a plant, what that does is encourages growth, encourages some action on its the plant's. Just if you get a cut, your body reacts to that. It makes a scab and it heals over. The same with plants. Once you cut it, it's either going to heal over, or the growth hormones will go toward that terminal bud, at the end of the stem of the branch, and pop out and grow. Next one. With the slide that Frank showed, we had the same plan and just cut off the ends. And you had all of the growth hormones coming from the plant and creating a bunch of healthy, gorgeous looking leaves, but they're going to be all centered at the ends of each of the branches. This will become a growth location here. In this case, that would be a good thing because it's going to be inside the plant when we do thinning cuts. There's a reason for the heading cuts, and there's a reason for the thinning cuts. With the heading cuts, the pictures here show that once you start getting all the growth at the ends, rather than in the middle and toward the bottom of the plant, you haven't allowed the air and light to enter the inside of the plant. And all of these leaves that go all the way to the stem or the scaffolding branches will die off. You've got to have sun, and you've got to have air circulation as well as water minerals and all this stuff. That's something you can control, is how much light a plant receives by choosing the right plant and taking its maintenance seriously and creating enough light. Have this plant grow leaves all the way in. That way, if you wanted to, shape it a little bit, you have leaves inside rather than just the branches. With thinning cut, an entirely different concept is you're cutting whole branches off. So rather than just cutting the end with the thinning cuts, you cut whole branches off to control the size and to create the new growth throughout the plant. So you've got this, and when you cut off a branch, don't just cut it off here, but you would cut it as far back as you can go. And in a lot of these, far back as you can go, it's already, or all the way to that main stem. The first thing you need to do when you are looking at a plant, prune, is what you want it to look like when you're done. Whether you want it to be formal, topiary type shape, or the natural form that the DNA is forcing that plant to do. When you do a lot of pruning, you are forcing it to do something that it's not born to do. And it's going to be a whole lot more work on your part to maintain that. Because if you have a nice topiary or straight hedge, when two of these things start growing out, that looks worse than really not doing anything. So this will control the size of the plant, and more importantly, it'll open up the plant so you'll have leaves all the way in here rather than just at the end. This is an example of a Pleura that has been pruned to let in the air and light. This will like to stay at about 12, 15 feet tall and can get very leggy because the new growth really needs a lot of light to grow. So if you don't create these windows, and let's go back to the previous slide. And when I say windows, cutting off big branches inside the plant that will leave holes so the air can come on the inside. So when you're standing like 2 feet away from the plant, you're going to be able to see the inside plant. And it may be dead looking, there may be not much going on. Give it time. Now inject the light, let air circulation start, leaves will grow. And for the aesthetic purposes, very are going to be 2 feet away from the plant. It'll be you and your household. People walking by, driving by, won't even notice. But the plant will. Okay, next. Okay. That is properly pruned with areas that right now you can kind of see through it a little bit. Next, please. This is an improperly pruned large holly, like a Belly Stevens holly. The DNA for this plant is between 25, 30 feet tall. A lot of these are planted at the ends of homes, 2, 3 feet away. On a one-story house, they get 20, 25 feet tall, and 15, 20, even further wide. If you want to see what it looked like on the strip on 199 right at Jamestown Road, right before between Route 5 and Jamestown Road. Those are Nellie Stevens olives. And those are probably the one shrub that you see most landscape, home landscape, because when you buy them, they're gorgeous. I mean, they're, you know, nice little things that are about this big around. They fit nice, and you have instant gratification that you have filled that spot up nice. Well, we all were tiny and cute in the nursery. Same with the plants. 5, 10, 70 years later, they are big, out of place, and really need some assistance. And people are going to keep cutting it back, which is a lot of work or money to head to. The trunk's going to get about this big. These will be trunks like this after 20 years. So that's nothing you want close to your house. So what the folks have done in this case is cut the top off. Okay, that's a heading cut. Okay, yeah, we heard about heading cuts. That's legit. Sometimes, but it's a leader, which will means all of the growth hormones are going to that terminal buds in that leader. And you cut it off, so that's going to force the growth hormones to go everywhere. So you're going to get all of the growth up, and not a central leader anymore because you can cut it off. If you have a central leader, that you just cut it off. Nothing's going to grow in the middle of it, but all the buds that are on the scaffolding, the lateral branches are popping out. You get a whole big bunch of growth at the top, which will shade the bottom. The leaves will fall off the bottom, and you've got a really big one. Here's the example. Okay, if you've got a holly or any single leader, large shrub or small tree, cutting it off, and this is what you'll see with great myrtles. What do you expect to grow from that? You know, any growth, as Frank taught you, is from little buds. Well, the little buds grow along branches. There's no little buds here. You've got shredded wood. The last thing you want is ripping the bark off. That's not going to do anything except encourage all of these to grow, and this will die because nothing is going to go up and nourish it, and it'll be a good source of food, bacteria, fungus, expletives. Renewal plume is a whole different sort of thing. Is that we're not doing exclusively cutting the plant all the way back, heading cut, and just cutting the ends, or selectively taking some out. But with renewal, several plants, and not all plants can do this. You're going to have to do a little bit of research. You can, and again, Frank's rule of the third, some of the Nandina, for instance, the Forsythia, the Regalia, the Leucothea, that grows by canes, and a third of them cut right down to the ground, maybe 2-3 inches from the ground. What that will do is force the roots, because all of the growth, rather than coming from a central leader, all comes from the root. A bunch of little things. If you cut those off, that's going to force those to grow here. So you're going to get a full plant starting from the bottom, rather than a whole bunch of tall nothing and a whole bunch of foliage at the top. All the foliage at the top can create an issue with wind, ice, snow, rain, even they'll fall over and snap. Cut a third of them off. About a third you can cut off in the middle, but still have some leaf on it. Don't cut it, just have a stick. You do cut some of them back, cut them so there is, or a few leaves left in them. And then kind of do a little heading cut to trim it up around the edge. Next year, do the same thing. Not the little ones, but the tallest ones. Cut those all the way back. And then on the third year, the ones that are still near original height, cut those all the way back. And usually it's a 3-year process to completely rejuvenate it. So you can have looking 8-foot tall Nandina, and in 3 years you can control its size, and it'll be full, gorgeous, very productive. Overgrown forsythia. Okay, that's somewhat wild, natural. Okay, let's control its size. Next, please. Okay, we've done all of the thinning cuts throughout, and then took several of the big branches totally away. So we have rejuvenated this. Right now, it's more of a skeleton. Unlike the cane plants that all are going to grow exclusively from the ground, this will all form this same season. This is still in flower. That's the time when, right after the flowers die, is the time to cut most of the plants. Otherwise, you may be cutting off the buds this or next year's. This was renewed while the flowers were still on, so it'll have a whole year to regenerate leaves, some more lateral branches, and the buds for next year. Okay, that's an Nandina, desperately need of Prune. It's covering the window. It's drippy, it's draggy. These big tall ones, count the number of canes that you have coming out of the ground in the clump, cut a third down, the next third of the third tallest ones, cut those a little bit, no more than a third, and then leave the others or just trim the ends. There's nothing worse than looking at a Nandina that has been rounded like a meatball or a square cube that you're forcing. The nickname of this is heavily bamboo. I mean, the reason you buy it, bamboo look rather than so next. Okay, again, rejuvenate. Other plants that aren't cane plants, and you're going to have to do a little bit of research on this. You can cut them all the way back on some overgrown shrubs, and they will completely rejuvenate and start all over. A lot of the Chinese hollies, particularly, you can slice those and they will come back. Great vernals will do the same thing. It's just 6 feet above the ground. And start rejuvenating some of these by electric plants rather than thinning it out and doing heavy cuts. Cut it. Next slide will show you what we're looking at. A group of Rissa hollies. These were at the shopping center at Five Forks a few years ago. Cut all the way back. Again, where these cuts are, they're just not indiscriminate with the chainsaw thing. But one of the buds So when the bud is forced with the growth hormones, they're gonna start somewhat near the cut that you made. That's good time to come in here. Annual grasses be cut every year. When they die back during the winter and they're brown, they're not going to green back up. Those are dead. So you need to, foliage has seen its life. So get rid of it, cut it, probably 6 inches, depending on the size, or lower. When they get older, you're gonna have to do a chainsaw or something because it's really vicious. But you can tie them up with a bungee cord and slice them. But that's an annual job. And that you don't really need to mess with annual grasses at all. To the end of the, it's an evergreen, but at the end of the winter season, it all like all frozen. Yeah, they look beautiful. Just cut them all the way back, and they'll also sprout back up and they'll be gorgeous in about 2 months. Do that before they start the years to grow. And what we recommend with the annual grasses, liriape, carex, and other grasses, is kind of late winter, early spring. Well, when is that? It's the week after Super.
Yeah.
The week after Super. Or if you still want to watch the Pro Bowl, you can. That rule of thumb, things. Some of them are popping up now. So I've got dozens in bloom already. So soon, some of them will arrive, and you'll see new growth. And once you start seeing just a little bit of new growth, please put it on. Okay, a couple of years later, that's what these are going to look like. And then as they continue to grow, they'll get back to the size they were originally. When you rejuvenate a plant and cut it back, don't expect it to be the same size next year. It's gonna start brand new. I mean, what you're doing, cutting it off, saving the good roots that you developed in this 10, 15 years and create a new plant. It didn't take 1 year to create that plant. Excellent. The shape is going to be determined by sun angles. As you've heard over and over again from Frank and me, sunlight, air circulation. If you have a trapezoidal cut to this, which is a lot easier to do because with these heading cuts that you use on the head, you create all this nice new growth all along the edges. So you keep cutting the edges and the light doesn't come down to the bottom. So it starts looking leggy. Then you've got, a nice row of azaleas and it's all just ugly looking stuff. Right way is narrower at the top. So you have sunlight all along the sides of the hedge. This can be excellent. Example. Keep cutting the tips only 20 years, that's what it's going to look like. Guaranteed. If you start shaping it and exposing the most to the light, you're going to have its natural shape. Okay, how to cut a limb. This is busy, so we're going to go to the next slide. Okay, when you cut a limb off, did you end up with a little stub? You cut it right here, flush with the trunk. It's not gonna grow a new one back. It's gonna do something to heal itself so you don't have this big open wound. Well, all of the growth hormones for this whole big branch that you're trying to take off are decided in this area in here. This is called the branch column. So the growth hormones from the roots, all the nutrients and things coming out from the roots, will go over and go to the terminal buds on all of the lateral and scapular branches. So if you cut it here, you have cut off the growth hormone. And as well, you have cut off the cells, there's specialized cells in here that will seal up that wound. And rock, again, and a source of water next to the lungs. So what you wanted to do is out a little bit, include the whole branch collar here, so you will have those specialized cells will grow and seal it up. And ideally, if you got it just right, they'll form like a little bump that'll be completely covered with bump. You may have a little thing like here, that you see some in there, but really the only way to do it. So you're gonna cut here. Now, how are you gonna do that? Say it's a big old branch like that. If you've done any pruning at all, they're heavy. If you let it drop, you're gonna rip all this bark off. It's like ripping your skin. Next. So the first cut you're gonna make anywhere on the branch, doesn't have to be close to this, be this far from it. Cut underneath about 3/4 of the way in. Next, please. Go to the other side of the branch, cut it, and at some point it's going to be such a little left that it's just going to break off. Well, if the bark breaks up here, that's fine, but you've got rid of all of the weight, and now you can just make sure that you make a nice clean 45-degree angle cut here. So we're going to go to the next slide. That was falling off. Splits away. Then it gives you the time or the opportunity to make that final cut and trim at the appropriate angle. Don't do it in here because this one, all of these cells in here are going to grow and form that seed. These are for bigger roots. Next, please. Here's a flush cut on a crepe myrtle that, if you don't like, the crepe myrtle with all these little knot-like things all over it, that's what they do. That's what they do. If you're going to try to make this smooth by cutting off all evidence of a branch, you're doing an injustice. Next, please. You want to make your tree smaller, limbing it up or crown lifting, just take off the lower branches. If you want to thin it out, just like with a shrub, pick out the branches that are filling out that crown and take no third of them out. Or if you want to reduce the size of the tree, take a look at the central leader or multiple leaders and start doing some adjustments to that. So you can go from this size down to here without just cutting each tree. All done with thinning. Next, please. Conifers, key here is don't remove green and go into the wood. Once you've got a branch and a bunch of needles here, if you cut it here, it'll never grow back. But if you pull the needles and cut it halfway in the needles, the terminal bud will continue to force the growth. When it's young to form the 10th growth, you can just hand pin both next, please. Conifers don't really need a lot of pruning unless you're trying to round it up. Frank's going to go and chat about some tool. Oh, okay. Next, please. He's going to go with the short amount of time. The amount of these tools are going to depend on how much we're going to be pruning. And Frank, I'm here going to emphasize quality. You're going to be better off by buying quality ones once for the rest of your life, rather than once a season. And make, just like with our bodies and our cars, maintenance is okay. To summarize everything that we've done, first thing you need to do, look at your plant. How does it grow? Is it a single leader? Is it a bamboo type thing? What do you want it to look like? Do a formal pruner? Do you want things that you have to be out there every week, keeping all headed cut, or more natural and have the plants look like the DNA that is the plant itself. And look, identify where the buds and the nodes are, so you know where to cut it. First thing you need to know, we have so many people when we go out and do visits, which if you want to come out, just fill up and leave. You have to know what the plan is, to know what to do. Every plan has its own set of rules. Next, please. If you don't prune, the animals will. Deer notorious, and you can usually tell deer damage that it's, like this high. In my yard, the rabbits prune all of my hollies, but this far from no problems. Next, please. Here's a list of publications that will be very handy as reference for the rest of your life. This little handbook. Each household will be receiving one of these before you leave. Everything that we've done, that we've talked about today is in here. The graphics are the same graphics that we had on. The best part of this is in the middle is green calendars. Find your plant, find the month that it should be pruned, and set up a calendar and prune accordingly. You can't go through and prune everything in your yard at the same time. So how do we prune with what we've got? Frank's going to show you the tool arsenal.
First, this is that little piece that I showed you. This is a full grown. This is my home here. I'm standing in front of it. And these flowers are fragrant. I don't know if you had a chance to smell it. And picture that smell carried 100 times. And it just, people walk down my street, I watch them, they come right to my driveway. It's pretty much. But anyway, on here, again, the most important thing is this calendar. I use this like the Bible. I mean, I've taken my plants that are on here. I've got a lot of plants in my yard. I put it on my calendar and I set it up early so that every year, a lot of them are in February and March, January. Crepe myrtles right now is the time to do your crepe myrtles. January, February, beginning of March. You can go to the end of March, a little bit. But the rule of thumb is when the plant has flowered, normally most plants, when they flower, you prune after they flower, or just at the very end of it. That's the best time to do your pruning tools. First thing I'm going to show you, make sure you have a good gloves. I had another set of gloves. They're kind of worn, so I went out and bought a new pair. Okay, these are leather gloves. All right, and you need to wear. These are my show gloves. Anyway, you need to wear gloves. Now, one problem I've had with my gloves is when I prune, I also have a tendency to do a lot of planting, and these, which are basically, I use these to go into the soil so I don't ruin these. Okay, so good idea to have something like this. Safety. When you are pruning big branches, you should wear some type of shoes that are not like I'm wearing right now. No open shoes, something that's hard so that the branch comes down. I've had it happen. You want something that's going to not mess up. Okay, another item that you should wear, safety glasses. All right, so when I go out on a pruning job, I usually wear safety glasses because you will have things fall, and they will fall on your eyes, and if they fall on your glasses, so I always wear pruning glasses. When you're working on items that are high up, like this was a pruning saw, this extends. And when you're cutting up branches high up, you go down like that, and it'll take care of your branches on the upper end. They have one of these. I actually have one that has a curve up here so that it's easier to work with. I never used it. I don't use this often. Try not to work on the branches that are high up, but occasionally, if there's a big branch that I don't want, I use this, which makes it easier and quicker, and it's basically a chainsaw. Okay, but it's a nice tool to make it quicker. Okay, I did pruning for about 2014. Had my mother move down here from New Jersey and needed something where I'd be flexible, so I started a little landscaping business. Anyway, I bought tools I could get in and out quicker, as opposed to like this. I use this a lot faster. Another tool that is important. There's a saw, and this is a saw to do, pruning, as opposed to that, you're pruning branches that are lower. This is for thicker branches. Okay. There's a different line, but anyway, there's different types that you can get. I was on a pruning visit in Queens Lake, and they were using that type of pruning saw. And then I went to this, and this you can control. You put your hand here, you control it, and it's a good cut. It's quick, and it's a lot faster than that. If you have a lot of pruning, or you don't want to be spending all day pruning with the other kind of saw, this do the job quickly and does it well.
Possible.
Excuse me?
Possibly.
Yeah. You can get this Home Depot or Lowe's. I know one of the two stores has this.
What is it? What's the brand?
This is a Black & Decker. Okay, but this is a great. I use this a lot.
And battery operated.
Battery operated. Now the nice thing, secret of the batteries, they're expensive. But you should get about. I have a bag of about 8 of these. Okay, and this way they last for probably 10-15 minutes at least. And then I switch the battery out and I put a new battery in. But batteries are important. They're the most expensive part of it. All right, the other thing that I use a lot, this is what I use the most, okay? This is a Felco pruner, all right? It's called a bypass pruner. It's because the blade passes by the other part. And I use this, probably this is my most important tool. When I'm using this, I wear a sheath on my belt like this. That actually goes through, and I wear this here. So when I'm done, I put it in here. Okay, I've lost these. Okay. Like a $60 tool. I don't want to lose it. Okay, so I put it in here and I'm done. But I've used, this is my probably most used tool because I have a lot, you saw my backyard, I have a lot of fun. There's another tool on an anvil pruner. Okay, and this is the anvil pruner. It's the same basic principle. I just went to, we had a presentation at our Master Gardener meeting at the library last few weeks ago. And the guy there said he doesn't use this, okay? I use this. You can use this on dead wood. It crushes your wood. Do not use this to prune your plants, okay? It crushes your wood. However, I use this when I cut a big branch off and I throw them in the garbage can. So I use this to cut it into smaller pieces so I can get more. I don't have to go to the Jolly Pine. But this is a good tool, but you don't use it for your basic pruning on your trees. When this is too small and you have a bigger branch, this is called a lopper. And they have different kind of loppers. This is a Falco lopper. I had one of these. I use it at the church where I go and we did some pruning on a Saturday. We also have some landscapers there. And I forgot it. I left it somewhere on the ground and came back with one. I put my name, my phone number on this. It's $100 tool this year. It's light. I mean, you got to look at the weight because when you're working, you want something light. This is again a Swiss-made tool. Now they have other kinds. When I lost this, I had it's called a Wolf Barton, which was good. It actually had extenders, so you can go further up with it. I still have it. It's in my van. I didn't bring it in, but anyway, there's different type of loppers. You don't need a Falco. I mean, you can get a less expensive lopper. Unless you're going to have a lot of pruning, then I get a good lopper. Wolf Barton is another brand that is good, as opposed to the Falco. Okay. Other things that are important. I carry when I go on pruning visits. I carry one of these as a pen. I use it to mark where to make the cuts. And when we make pruning visits, we don't make the cuts for you. We show you where to make the cuts and how to make the cuts. But this, I mark them for the homeowner. I asked them before I do it, you mind if I mark it? They said, yeah, mark it. So I mark it, and then they can make the cut, and they'll know where to make the cut, so it doesn't go into the branch column. This is another tool that we use to, when you make a cut on a branch, especially if it's a bigger cut, you don't want it to get infected, so you can just go around the sides and clean it up. Again, this is not necessary, but it's a nice tool to keep it cleaner and to keep your plants healthier. This is Opanel. It's a French-made cutter. What do you call this?
Hawksbill style.
It's what?
A hawksbill.
Hawk?
Like a hawksbill.
Hawksbill.
Yes, or a crane, hawksbill.
Okay, Hawksbill. For the name of it, but we have
Style.
the style. Okay.
Makes sense.
It's excellent. It's easy to use. You can really clean up your cuts with this. After you've made your cut, sometimes you'll see the cut and it gets kind of shredded around the sides. This cleans it up so you don't have it. Again, if you don't have a lot, it's just a nice tool. If you have a lot of work to do, landscapers that you have working for you, they don't have to use this. They want to get in and out. And that's why you see some things that are really not done. Tools like this 3-in-1 oil, you can use this to lubricate your tools. You should lubricate them and clean them and sharpen them. This is a sharpener, and you can get these online. You can buy them at some of the big box stores. All right, but this is a way of sharpening. And when you sharpen, you just you go on the side with the blade, the bevel side. You just go like that. Be careful you don't cut yourself. All right, and you have a nice sharp blade. All right, but the sharpness is important, especially if you're going to do a lot of pruning. Oil only goes on the part that's where the joints are. Exactly.
At the Joanna Market, when, during the summer, there is a man out there who does all kind of sharpening of knives. I have taken my stuff, and when I've come back, it's wonderful. He does a really good job.
Williamsburg Market used to do it, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the same person, is it? But he does a wonderful job. And I didn't know his
They will
name.
also do it at each of the Ace Hardware.
But
Sure.
Two other items, when you're working outside.
I think my knives.
When you're working outside, you also need to have some type of lotion. Because sun will have an impact on you. I did work out for 8 years outside. I actually had some squamous cells removed from my head. So I wear this when I'm pruning now. When I go out and I'm working somewhere, I just put this on, keeps my head covered, and it works. Okay. Might not look too good, but it works. The other thing that I use, and I don't use this enough, but if I am using pruners like that and I'm up in the trees, I've had branches come down and almost hit me. Okay. As soon as the branch almost hit me, I run into the van, I grab this and put it on. Okay. But it's, you should have some kind of a protection when you're working on branches that are high up. That's about it. So, okay, any questions I can answer? Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry, that's Lysol. Okay, in between cuts, in between your cutting, you go from one tree to another tree, especially if you have a diseased tree of some sort, you're cutting off the dead part, always use a Lysol spray or a Lysol wipe on your pieces. Now, I like the wipes. I have a spray also, but the wipes are kind of nice because not only are you sanitizing, but you are cleaning your blades off. Right. So you can see this one hasn't been cleaned. I haven't used these too much yet. I will be using them in the next few weeks a lot. And it's dirty, but this not only cleans it, but it also sanitizes it. Okay, this is important, sanitizing. The other thing that's important, especially in the summer when I do some of my pruning, is I don't know how many of you have ever had ticks or chiggers. If you have deer in your yard, you have ticks. And I've had tick bites to the point where I've actually gone to the doctor because it got infected. Now I use this a lot. This is just bug spray off. Okay. I personally prefer this. It's permethrin, and you can buy this on Amazon. I think some of the stores may sell it here, but it's called permethrin clothing gear intense premium insect repellent. I spray my clothes. I wear long sleeves. I don't wear, even in the summer when it's hot, I wear long sleeve shirts, and I spray all my clothes with this, and my shoes, my socks, my hat, everything. And then I let it sit for a day before I wear it. You don't put it, spray it, and then wear it. Spray it in advance, and then you wear it, and you won't have to worry about ticks, chiggers. I don't know how many had chiggers. Okay, this will keep the chiggers away too. Question.
I use that in my laundry.
In your laundry?
It's good for several cycles.
Exactly. This will work for like 3 washes on your laundry. So if you use it, you're dirty, and you put your clothes in the wash, it's still good for at least another 2 rounds.
So I mean, I put it in my laundry.
You put it
Yes,
You spray it? in the washer.
in the washing machine.
You mean spray inside?
Well, I get the jug of it.
Oh.
It's like a softener.
Okay, now you can, this is liquid, you can open this up. But this is not real inexpensive, but it's probably, I've been training for about 8 years now, and I'd say this is the best product I've used. It's PER, for those that need the spelling, METHRIN. And it's, again, this is, to me, this is an important tool. Okay, question, yes.
Mentioned a lot about the DNA How do I know what DNA? So I'm looking at like hydrating.
Okay.
How do I decide the natural DNAs that? Is there a website where they show,
Okay,
this is what a hydrangea should look like?
Ideally, if you had planted the plant, all the information is gonna be on that plant, like, read that before. If you move into a home and the plants are there already, you do have to figure out what the plant is. And then there are, several plant sites that you can list out. Plants, I care for it, da, 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 da.
Well, they should.
The Missouri Botanical Garden,
I just, I had about 20 customers at one time. So I used to go out quite a bit doing pruning, planting and everything else. Before I go out to do any kind of pruning, I always look at this. Like for hydrangeas, it has two types of hydrangeas and it tells you when to prune them. That's the most important thing. Where you plant them is also important because some plants like a lot of sun, some like more shade. You need to know where. Then you've got the deer problem and the rabbit problem, bulb problem. I mean, I've got bulb blocks in my backyard to keep them away from my roses. I've got my deer. I screened in my whole yard. I put a fence in the back to keep the deer out. I have no deer anymore problems. The rabbits get in occasionally, and I have rabbit fencing all along the bottom to keep them out. But it's the DNA. I'm sorry, I can't really answer the question. I go online before I do any pruning visits. I know what their plants are that they want, and I do a little research online before I go just to get more information. Okay? Hope that helps a little. Yes.
I was gonna say the same thing, that if you research and you on the record.
Okay.
I was gonna say, there's an app that I use, cause I'm terrible, I can remember every bird name, but when it comes to plants, I'll forget the minute I realize what it is. It's called Picture This. It's an app. It tells you what the plant is. It helps you tell you when you prune it. It helps everything. If you pay the extra fee, it'll keep the plants in your lipstick and everything. It's called Picture This.
Picture this.
It's awesome.
It's not expensive. I mean, you do have to pay a little bit, but it's minimal. It is probably one of my best. $35 a year.
Yeah,
$35 a
It's
year.
worth it.
It tells you a lot about the plant. So if I don't know, somebody say, what is this? And I'm not sure. I take a picture and it gives you tons of information about that plant. So you might want to try that on yours also. Yes?
What numbers should you get for you to get the chance? All of you. How's my
I would say wait till the following year. Now, like my azaleas, you're supposed to prune your azaleas right after they bloom. I know, you're talking hydrangea. I'm just using that as an example. My azaleas, normally you prune them after they bloom. Okay, so I have some shoots coming up right now, and they bloomed a long time ago. I'm, a little concerned about pruning them, but my wife says they look ugly, so I'm going to take off the long sticks that are coming out of the top, and the plant should be okay. Right, hydrangeas. There's different kind of hydrangeas. Now, the books that we're passing will show you when to prune them. If you missed your window, you can take a chance and prune them anyway. I do that from time to time, and most usually they'll still be okay. I can't promise that. So just take a shot at it and hope for the best. But question or answer, maybe question.
Question.
Okay.
Because it fell in December, I had plants that were damaged. Some of it's just showing up now.
Yeah.
When is it safe? When I've seen damage, cut it off.
I would probably wait. So because we're gonna have some more cold snaps. We're not done. All right. I had my fig tree. I had a fig tree almost as tall as this room, and it was good for like 12 years. My mother used to go out on our deck and just pick figs and eat them in the morning. And then the tree died. We had a big cold winter and it knocked the tree out. It still had some life in the bottom and it has regrown and it's back to where it was. But plants, this cold, usually plant can survive with 1 or 2 days. But when you have a straight week of like really, really cold temperatures, like gardenias in particular suffer. Our fig trees, I have oleander growing, it's growing really well. And it's doing well, and I'm surprised that it's still survived. It got through those few days, but if we get a straight week of coldness, it's trouble.
Yeah, gardenias are particularly, it takes a long time for them to pop out. My experience is, we had 20 years ago when we had really nasty weather, new leaves didn't pop out until June. So, time is on your side with this. This spring, several of your plants may look a little ratty, but give them time. And at the end of where the leaf is that has been frostbitten, there should be a little bud at the bottom that will replace that.
Yeah, my
I burned them, and I never had them. I thought it was a lost cause. So, I just. Right back.
I was going to say, if you have a plant that looks like it's just about done because of the cold, don't take it out. I had a lady that had a beautiful gardenia and it looked like it was dead. And she wanted me to take it out. I said, yeah, I don't think so. I said, just let it stay. I think it'll come back. And it did. It came back big and beautiful. So, if you see your plant that has, leaves that look like they've been damaged, let it stay. I mean, give it time. If it doesn't come back by July, then you might take it away. Okay, but give it time. It should come.
With viburnums, particularly the Chindo viburnum, which we have a lot of, and the Tinus viburnum. Right now, all the leaves are really bad. Give them time. It hadn't been that cold that long.
Question, you're next.
Also applied
Fruit trees? Okay, fig trees. Fig trees I do in February. I have about 8 varieties of fig trees on my property. I have about a 3/4 acre property. And I have a friend of mine who does espalier figs. I call him the fig guru. And he's given me, I have a La Rula, an Italian fig. It's a big green white fig. It's finally getting leaves. I'll be bringing it outside shortly. But anyway, fig trees, February is a rule of thumb. And you can cut pieces off, use a little bit of that root tone, put it in the ground. You can start new figs and give them away. I'm sorry, you were next, and then you're following.
We hear a lot about how not to prune these crepe myrtles, that chop them all up.
Mhm.
What is the right?
Okay, right way to prune crepe myrtle. I do quite a few crepe myrtles. In fact, I'm doing one this afternoon. You look for crossing branches. That's the first thing. If you see a crossing branch, you have to decide. And I feel like it gives me a chance to bring my artistic side out, because I look at the tree and I try to envision what it's going to look like if I take this one out versus taking that one out. A lot of times I bring the homeowner with me and I'll call them in. I said, listen, this is your tree. I can tell you, I would probably take a certain branch out. I want to see which one you would take out. And they usually pick the same one that I wanted to do in the first place. But just look at the tree and decide which branch is the one you want. If you see shooters coming up, you can take those out. If you see, especially on crepe myrtles, you'll see a lot of shoots coming from the ground. Cut them out. They're just sucking up energy. And then what are they called? I forgot the name. These sprouts, water sprouts. Cut them out because they're just sucking up energy from the plant. But oh no, please never take the tops off. Okay, I actually have a Facebook web page. It's called Golden Years. It's on Facebook. I haven't really updated it, but I have a picture of the buck trout crepe myrtles, which chop off the top, and it just drove me crazy when I saw this. I put it on my Facebook page. Don't do this. Okay. Yes.
Camellias, winter camellias that Blooming with full stuff.
Mhm.
And we just planted them this ponds and not really established.
Okay.
They're starting to push the ground. Yeah, did we lose,
Did they what? I'm sorry.
maybe we lost them?
No, I
And
would,
it's supposed to be able to handle that kind of breeze.
yeah, there are different type of camellias. There's different varieties.
Yeah.
Well, some varieties might not do as well in cold weather as others. Camellias that I have are more in a shaded area. They seem to like shade more so than direct sun. I don't know.
There's different kinds. This kind like sun. That's
Okay.
how we put it where it
Okay.
is.
But,
But it's starting to turn brown, so I know they're not supposed to turn brown.
it's not the I mean, all the leaves. I'd have to look at it to really, see what caused, what's creating the
But we
condition.
should put it now because flowers or the.
If you said you just put it in October,
Yeah.
I would not prune it this year at all. I'd let it go for a year at least. Yeah, exactly. Let the roots get, let that plant grow well. Did you plant it or did you have any? Okay, so you made a big hole on the side and, okay. But I mean, how you plant plants sometimes can affect the growth also.
Not everything has to be pruned every year. And people say, oh, I gotta prune everything. It's pruning
There's
time.
landscape
Nope.
along this. Oh.
Yeah, there's another whole division of the Master Gardener program called Landscape Love. And you will see them on the website where you can make an appointment to have them come to your home also. And they come with teams of usually minimum two, at least 3 people, like the pruning clinic does, and they will show you all kind of things that, you give them questions you have about your yard and they'll help you.
One thing that I'll reemphasize was on our slide here, our website for the Master Gardeners, jccwmg.org. This is available under the Pruning Clinic resources. You can get this online. We also have 3 videos that are done within the botanical garden. And again, in that on the menu that says videos, one strictly on tools, the other on pruning techniques and assessing how to prune. So that'll be a reminder as well as the references. We do still have some availability if you'd like us to home this season. PCC, James City County, W, Williamsburg, MG, Master Gardens, work. Provide a lot of information.
Any other questions? Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.